there's a reason why God is doing this. It's so we will learn from our mistakes and make sure that next time the Jewish majority gets back into power, we do not doing the same mistakes again.
Folks, as you know, social media censorship is growing. The best way to support our video work for Israel is to subscribe to our video newsletter on pulseofisrael.com and to share our videos. If you are already a subscriber, then thank you. Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pulse of Israel here in our new Jewish year. We are in the holiest time period for the Jewish people between the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the holiest days. Jews all over the world are supposed to be focused on how can we be better people, how do we atone for ourselves as we go into the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and it's a whole new beginning for us in many, many ways. So I am excited to start off this new year with my first interview with someone who I've been following and connected with for many, many years, Moshe Feiglin. Moshe is one of the most successful protest leaders here in Israel. Back in the 1990s, started a whole movement called Zu Artzeinu, This is Our Land. I have interviewed Moshe before, but I just want to give an introduction for those of you who might not be familiar. Zu Artzeinu, This is Our Land was a huge national protest movement against the disastrous Oslo peace process that he knew and I knew and so many other Israelis knew would be a disaster for Israel, wouldn't bring peace, would bring more war and terror. And from there, he jumped into politics to make a difference in politics, joined the Likud party with the desire to one day become leader of the Likud, to replace Netanyahu, tried to do that for 17 years, built up his presence in the Likud party. I was an active member of the Likud party following Moshe's lead, and after 17 years decided to take a different path, setting up his own party because the Likud party kept on blocking him. And right now, he is coming back to the Likud party with Netanyahu's blessing, which I'm looking forward to hearing all about that. Shalom, shalom, Moshe Feiglin. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, Avi. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you. We know each other for many years. Will you let me add something to your explanation of Rosh Hashanah at the beginning?
Please, please, please.
You mentioned that the beginning of the year, Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, of the Jewish year, is a day where every individual Jew trying to think where he can be better. But the main focus of this day is something else besides the individual part, which is most relevant when we are not in our land, in the diaspora. The main focus of Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year in the land of Israel, when we live here as a nation, is to make the Creator the King of the world. That's why we're blowing the shofar. It's like we putting the crane on the king head. Okay, they're his people, making him the king. And the first thing we're saying is, En lanu melech ela ata. You are our only king. Now, it can be done probably only as a nation here in Eretz Israel. That's why the focus is different. That's why it's so important that every Jew will make aliyah and come to Eretz Israel, because by coming back to the land of Israel, every Jew that comes to Israel basically declare that the King of Earth is the Creator and no one besides him. That is also the reason why dictators throughout the years, throughout the history, since Paro and Achashverosh in the ancient times, and Yimach Shmo, Hitler Yimach Shmo, and Stalin Yimach Shmo, came to conclusion that they have to wipe out all the Jews, because the Jew will always be free, no matter where you put him, in the worst gulag or concentration camp. The Jewish baby, last Jewish baby, is a danger to some human being that wants to be king of the world, because the last Jewish kid already had a king, and he's the only king. So that's the real essence of this day, and to really feel it and be part of it, you have to pick up your your family and come to Israel and be part of it.
Thank you so much for adding that. And another, just to add upon that, a message that I'm giving across to a lot of people. A lot of people are confused with everything going on in the world today. Again, both as an Israeli, as a Jew, and also as an American Jew who now lives in Israel, you could say the past few years, we were like living in a twilight zone of things were good. We had a strong issues, but a strong government here in Israel, a strong government in America. The world was in a good place. Israel was in a good place. We had a strong friend in America. Things were in a good place. All of a sudden, everything is unraveling on so many levels. Governments, societies, governments using too much power or taking away freedoms, medical tyranny, some people might even say. And all of a sudden, people are confused. What's going on? And a message that I've been going across is, guys, take a step back. With all the complaints of what's going on, God is reminding us of something. We're supposed to return to Him. We're supposed to focus and trust in Him. Stop trusting politicians. Stop trusting the journalists. Little by little, people are waking up. Wait a second. We can't trust this one. We can't trust that one. Wait, doctors, all these doctors, what are they telling us? Doesn't make sense. These rules. All of a sudden, little by little, people are losing their trust. And hopefully, we're supposed to be returning and trusting in the one and only entity we're supposed to be trusting. And that is...
Avi, please let me make it a little bit more accurate. Again, please. Of course it's about trust, but beforehand, it's about our freedom. It's about liberty. It's about keeping your basic freedom. And this is what's being taken from us. The feeling of being a free people. B'nei Chorin, okay? After all, we all understand that it's not about controlling the virus. It's about controlling you and me, okay? At the end of the world, okay? At the end of the day. So it's not only these dictators that I mentioned. It's this global dictatorship that we're facing today. Okay, the dictatorship of the media, the dictatorship of social media, the internet, and so on. The dictatorship of the pharma companies, the dictatorship of you see that the whole world, I mean, democracy is gone. The concept of the free world that leans on basic identities, national identity, the community identity, family, the basic concept of family that gives you your freedom, all these basic, the human being identity, your sexual identity, okay, the basic frame of identity that God gave us. The construction of identities that let us stand on our own feet as a free human being in front of the world is all wiped out. And we become, they took away all the identities, this big progress movement, and now we are standing stripped from our freedom in front of this new kind of tyranny. Okay, which we don't understand. It's not easy. It was much easier when it was the Soviets or the Nazis or the whatever. was much easier when it had a name and a nation and a king and a simple kingdom. It's much more complicated today to realize what's going on here. But this is what it is. So, as always, the Jews can be the core of the problem or the core of the cure, solution. Okay? It's always like that. Like communism is a Jewish invention. Okay? What can we do? That's the truth. The Jew always have to fix the world in some kind of kingdom. If he doesn't fix the world in the kingdom of God, you can find some progress, stupidity, or communism or whatever to fix the world with. Okay.
Good point.
So the bad news is that so far Israel leading the march of global tyranny with the way it acts in front of the new global challenge, this Chinese virus. On the other hand, that's the bad news. The good news, that's also I believe that the solution is also here in Israel. When we will make tshuva, come back from this direction, get back, connect ourselves to our own identity as a nation. Here in the land of Israel, a message of freedom will come from here, from the land of Israel to the entire world. I have no doubt about it, because there is a king. And as you said, the king is not any kind of this tyranny, any arm of that big octopus that grab us from all directions, grab our souls through the media and the internet, and grab our bodies through the pharma companies. We can become free people if we'll just remember who's the real king.
Right. Right. All right. Well, we might
touch upon politics. Back to politics.
Yeah, back to politics. We might return to that, but yes, definitely back to politics right now. Why did you return to the Likud party? Why? And first of all, there's so much to talk about. So I don't know how much time you have. You let me know when you're done. I'll give you all the time of the day because there's so much I want to pick your brain about. But why did you return? And how did you return with, in a sense, the blessing of Netanyahu, the person who personally did everything in his power to push you out just years ago?
Well, God has his ways and his sense of humor, I may say. Look, after 17 years in Likud, why did they came into Likud to the first place after Zohar Tzenu and everything I did? Because I realized that the Israeli leadership has to need that way of thinking that I just represent. We cannot keep on having our Jewish state disconnect from its roots and direction and goal. We have to connect the whole Zionist revolution to Jewish history and to the Jewish goal that started with Abraham. When God told Abraham, Lech lecha me'artzecha u'mimolodtecha u'mbeit avicha, go from Haran to Eretz Israel, and I'm going to create a nation from you that will spread the word in the entire world, which means there is one God, and therefore no one is a slave to another. No human being is a slave to another. We all human beings under the wings of this one God, free human beings. The deep message of Judaism It's freedom. And to connect the state of Israel, the state of the Jews, to this amazing goal of the Jewish nation, which the Americans tried to take part of the way,
right,
with some success. Okay. It ended, unfortunately, but for a while, America saw herself as spreading that message, taking this message forward, which was beautiful, but it ended, unfortunately. America is just a shadow of itself today. And I think this amazing message to the entire humanity should come back to its sources, to Zion, and to the original people, the people of the book. And that the state of Israel have to be a tool in the hand of the Jewish people towards its original goal, to serve its original goal. So I looked for ways to pour this meaning into the Israeli politics and create leadership to the state of Israel that hold this wide message, which is not a religious message. Okay, it's not about religion as we know it from diaspora, Haredim or Niket Kippot or whatever. It's not a synagogue message. It's a national message. It's a life message. It's a cultural message. Okay, it's much wider than just narrow religious narrow religious theme. Okay,
right,
if I may say. So I looked for the best place to get in and spread this message through and create this message through. And the Likud, which is the leading party, leading political tool of the national camp, of the Jewish majority in Israel, that see themselves as Jews, first and all and above all, okay, seemed to me like the natural platform to do that. Just as usually the believers in America will go to the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. It's the same thing. Oh, close to understand. However, as you mentioned, Netanyahu unfortunately saw it at the time as a threat, and fought against me with all the tricks that written in the book, and he wrote a few new books also. It came to a point that I had to leave, and I created the Zehut Party, which made a tremendous difference, progress in Israeli conscience, in the understanding of freedom, in many, many aspects. And then, miraculously, Zehut did not manage to pass the threshold. It needed another quarter of a mandate to pass. And I believe it's for the good, because the end result was that Netanyahu and me started to talk. We both understand that they need each other. Okay, I think. And yes, back to Likud with open arms. The Likudnikim, the entire Likud members see it as something that really needed in the party. Something that bring my comeback. It brings ideology and fresh concepts and meaning to the party. I learned a few things from my mistakes in the past. I believe both sides are more ready to accept each other and to march together. And I feel that this ice or the glass wall or glass ceiling that I had above my head that made me leave the party, hopefully is not there anymore. So the Likud became again the right place to get this beautiful message, further in the Israeli politics.
Interesting. So, two follow-up questions to that. I'll start with the first one. Anybody who's been following you and your outspoken stance against the government direction of pushing this vaccine is the only solution to get us out of this coronavirus situation in Israel, whereas you know, and you've been vocal about the existing medical treatments that exist, and there is no need for a massive coercion of a population to go in this vaccine is the only solution direction. How are you joining up with Netanyahu at this point in time where, in a sense, he was the leader, he was prime minister at the time, who basically signed the agreement with Pfizer that, in a sense, allowed Israel to become the laboratory, not my words, but Pfizer's own words, and the CEO of Pfizer's own words, the laboratory for Pfizer. America's waiting for data from Israel on the third booster before the FDA decides. Israel is the laboratory. And with your vocal voice against this to help Israel get out of this, but using medical treatments that exist and listening to the doctors and the scientists who say it's possible, we don't need this Pfizer vaccine direction, yet you're joining with Netanyahu, who pushed that and is still pushing that.
Look, first of all, in Netanyahu's favor, we have to remember that when he came with those vaccines, things were not clear as they are today. Today we are a year after, and we have much more knowledge than we had then. And you know, all the medical establishment in Israel pushed him towards one direction. When you have a kid, God forbid, with a serious problem, and then the doctor tells you, look, there's an experimental treatment that will be ready only in a few years, but if you're willing to get on the experimental path, you can get it immediately for free. What do you say? So you probably will say yes, right? Because you used to see the medical institutions as something that looks only for the good, and usually there's no problem with usually you cure it. So I can see how Netanyahu at the time thinking for himself, hey, this is a serious company, it's Pfizer. They made millions of medicines and vaccines before, and all the establishment is in favor of that. So why not? Let's make Israel the first one to get it. And yes, there will be a political benefit for me too from that. Of course, it comes together. I can see what brought him into this path. So this is to his benefit, okay, to see the whole picture. But you're right, today there's a conflict here between my understanding and his understanding. And I can say, maybe thank God we are in your position right now. Hopefully the whole question will clear up before we get back to power and we won't have to fight about it. But it's not the first time that I disagree with him. And I had very deep and serious disagreements with him before. And I will still have disagreements with him in the future. However, and that is very important thing to understand here. And with your permission, I have to make the picture a bit wider.
Please.
To realize what's going on here.
Please.
What is the real fight in the Israeli society? Is it between left and right? Religious and non-religious? Charedim and Kippot Sruga? What is the big conflict here in Israel? Unfortunately, Arthur Finkelstein in '96 told Netanyahu what the conflict is. When you go to an Israeli and you ask him, what are you first, an Israeli or a Jew? What is your basic identity? Where you're starting? What you lean on your Israeli identity or on your Jewish identity? And Finkelstein told Netanyahu, when somebody answers Israeli, he's not going to vote for you. When somebody answers a Jew, he's your voter. He's your potential voter. And the way Netanyahu won against all odds, only half a year after the Rabin assassination against Shimon Peres, was with the slogan, Netanyahu tov leYehudim. Netanyahu is good for the Jews.
Right.
Okay? So what is the big conflict? Nothing changed. The big conflict is not between just left and right, this abstract words. It is between the Jewish majority and the Israeli minority and the Arabs. These are the two gushim here, okay? Two blocks. The Jewish majority wants a Jewish state. So you have the Jewish state bloc against what? Against the state of all its citizens bloc. They want the state of all its citizens. They don't want Jewish state, period. It's hard for us to realize that. It's hard for us to understand that. It's hard for us to believe it. But when the deputy Mossad, Ram Ben Barak, deputy Mossad commander, number 2 in the Mossad, okay, who become a Knesset member in Lapid's, not even Meretz, in Lapid party, come out and clear and saying, I don't mind, he said, number 2 in the Mossad, I don't mind that an Arab woman, Israeli woman, who's a member in the Muslim Brotherhood, okay, will become the head of the Mossad. It's like say in America that I don't mind that Bin Laden will be the head of the CIA, approximately, okay? You and I cannot understand that. How can you understand such a stupidity? Comes out of the mouth, but he's not a stupid guy, he's a hero. And he came straight from the intelligence. He's not stupid. And not a coward. Okay? And not an idiot, as we like to say. No. It leans on the concept that we created a state of all its citizens, not a Jewish state. We want to be Am Kechol Ha'amim, a nation like all the nations. Normal. Not carry on our back this whole difference between us and the nation. We want to become normal. That's the concept. That's the Zionist concept. So and for example, the Aharon Barak, the famous Supreme Court judge, head of the Supreme Court, who created the whole what he calls the Ma'apecha Shiputit, the
judicial revolution,
the constitution. Yeah. Saying openly, for me, he says, Israel is a state of all its citizens. Why do you think they always let the terrorists go to the Knesset? Okay, this is what they're fighting for. So this is what it is all about. Is Israel? Are we going to have in Israel a Jewish state or state of citizen? What kind of a state we leaving for our kids and grandchildren?
I just want to clarify, Moshe, before you continue, for those who do not understand, Israel is a state where every citizen, regardless Jewish, not Jewish, Muslim, Christian, they have freedom of religion, they have freedom of speech, they're able to, in a sense, be the prime minister of Israel, able to do everything, freedom of employment, everything. The term state of all its citizens means negating the special Jewish aspect to the one and only Jewish state of Israel, where all people can live in freedom and equality, as opposed to the Jewish state, where if there is a strong Jewish character to the state, the only place where the Jews have their own state, where the holidays are Jewish states, as opposed to the others, they don't want Jewish holidays to be anything special. They don't want anything special about Jews. It's just a state, just like France is to the French, or English is to Britain is to the English, Italy is to the Italians. They want Israel to be the Israelis, no matter, and getting rid of any special Jewish character. So
let me frame it in a non-political correct way, okay?
Please.
Judaism is not another religion. Judaism is a connection of religion and nationality at the same token. And therefore, when you're talking about a Jewish
with a homeland,
state,
with a homeland,
with the homeland, it's part of it. It's part of the identity. The homeland is part of the identity. And therefore, when you're talking about state of all its citizens, it may work in America because Christianity is just a religion. It may work in England. By the way, it's not. The truth is it's not. Once we all understand that America as we know it and England as we know it leans on Christian culture, even if atheists runs it, okay? Once the Muslims runs it according to their culture, there's no more America, okay? But forget about that. In Israel, for sure, it cannot work because the basic concept of Judaism is not a religion, as I mentioned before. It's much wider than that. It's nationality. So when you create a Jewish state, if you can have all your individual freedoms, and you do have it in Israel more than anywhere else in the world, if you're an Arab, okay? But the company, okay, will not belong to you. You have the freedom, but it's not yours. For example, if an Israeli Arab become part of Al-Qaeda, and that happens every once in a while, as we know, okay? And he has an Israeli citizenship. You can take off his citizen, you can take away his citizenship, and send him to Afghanistan or to Gaza. Okay? In principle, Israel doesn't do it. But that's what Israel should.
Right.
But let's say a Jewish become a terrorist of Al-Qaeda. Can Israel do the same with a Jew? No, it can't. Because the land, the state of Israel belongs to him. He can be sent to a death sentence, but you cannot treat him as you joined our hospitality and now you use it for the bad, so you cannot be here anymore. No, the state of Israel belongs also to him. So he has to be punished here and stay here inside the family. It's a major difference, okay? Now, I know that what I just said doesn't make sense for the democratic ear in the world. Well, you know something? The democracy is supposed to serve the nation and not to replace it. Mm-hmm. Okay? For example, can you become the president of America if you were not born in America? You can't, right? Why? If I have you just created a second-class American citizen. Yes, but the democracy is supposed to serve the basic ethos of the nation. So there's nothing wrong in make sure that the Israeli democracy fits the basic ethos of the Jewish state. So that's a big, that's just put it aside. Now I want to come back to the point. So that's the big conflict here between the Jewish majority. Most of the Israelis still see themselves, first of all and above all, as Jews, and wants to have a Jewish state, to the minority that together with the Arabs, and to the biggest scam or robbery or thief or steal of whatever you call it, what Bennett did, okay? Took another 7 mandates from the core of the Jewish majority and managed to create a leftist and Arab government that serves the purpose of state of all its citizens. Okay? So, back to the point of Netanyahu. Oh, came to all the story we started from the story from Netanyahu. Now, why for the last 5 years the media and the Supreme Court, all these forces that are not electable in Israel, because Israel is not democracy like America, okay? Trying in any crazy way to nail Netanyahu down with this, court cases and ridiculous charges that everybody understands that make no sense. Why? What do they want from Netanyahu? He is not corrupt. He's not more corrupted than any other prime minister at least since 1967. Actually, much less than Rabin and than Eshkol and then Peres for sure, and you name it. I can show you maybe Golda not, okay? They created a whole new set of rules for Netanyahu. Why? Because in their eyes, they see a very strong leader, very capable leader. No one can take it away from him, okay? That holds together the Jewish majority. They say to themselves, if we get Netanyahu away from out of the game, that Jewish majority will tear apart, and we will able to control the country and make it a state of all it is. So without even, I'm not sure how much Netanyahu is aware of what I'm just saying right now. I tried to explain him that. I'm not sure he deeply understands himself, if I may say. But when they attack Netanyahu, they attacked me, they attacked you. It's not about Netanyahu. There's so many things that I disagree with him in the past, and probably so in the future. But I am not going to join this putsch that this block of state of all its citizens, with all its power points in the media, in the courts, and so on, created against the leader that the national camp, the Jewish majority, voted for. Okay, and so yes, I joined Likud. I know my place. I'll make my way up naturally, but I'm not going to join that putsch. Unfortunately, I see some Knesset members that this way or the other, definitely Gideon Saar, okay, join that push. Definitely Bennett, who right now his way is being paved by the left, You will hear no criticism against Bennett, not in Haaretz, not in Yediot Acharonot, any, al kol pesha techase ahava, as they say, on any crime, the love of the left will cover. When we're talking about Bennett right now, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not there.
So
just to summarize it, yes, with this vaccine story, we are not on the same page, Netanyahu and me. I will keep on saying my truth because I feel obligated and responsible to save kids from this vaccine. When Netanyahu came with it, they were not talking about the kids. Now they're talking about kids 4 years old already. It's ridiculous. It's to sacrifice kids for this idol worship, okay? With no necessary at all. For sure. So of course I'm going to stand against it and say my truth. And I'll do my best not to make it a conflict between me and Netanyahu.
Well, just
so now you see the whole thing.
No. Very good. So I want to follow up with follow-up questions. Before, I'm just going to touch upon what you said right now. I just again, because you brought up the whole vaccine direction with former Prime Minister Netanyahu. Back in March 2020, I started being in contact with the Prime Minister's office and with the Israel Ministry of Health, because I was blessed enough to have interviewed Dr. Zelenko back in the very beginning, March 2020, and he opened up my eyes to what was going on and to the whole hydroxychloroquine treatment solution that was working and saving people's lives. I got him to the Prime Minister's office. I don't know if it was me, but we got him to get in touch with the Prime Minister's office, and Prime Minister Netanyahu ended up ordering, I think it was 5 million pills of hydroxychloroquine, a special delivery from Prime Minister Modi in India. Like I don't know if it was in the Israeli press, but it was in the Indian press. They said thanks to the friendship and Modi for sure. He couldn't say no to Netanyahu. 5 million tablets of hydroxychloroquine flew to Israel. Guess what? They're still stuck in some warehouse somewhere. They weren't used. Why? Because even though Dr. Zelenko saved the Minister of Health's life with hydroxychloroquine. The Minister of Health at the time was Minister Litzman. And Dr. Zelenko saved his life as he was sitting Minister of the Health Ministry. Yet the Health Ministry, and again, I was in touch with the Health Ministry at the time, and they put up a brick wall. They did everything to stop any and all usage of hydroxychloroquine. And like you said, I definitely saw it already back then in April 2020, that it was the Health Ministry pushing the Pfizer vaccine and shutting down all discussion and fake news already back then, trying to call everything fake news and delegitimize it through the medical establishment and just push that. So I just wanted to add that in there for people who are listening to understand some context also, and also understand your context of why Netanyahu decided to make the decision he did. And everyone has to realize there were elections, and yes, he decided to give it a shot to potentially win the elections. But getting back to politics, why are you not supportive of Bennett and the Yamina party? Here is he comes from he's a right winger, right? Yamina in Hebrew, which means right? He always pushed himself out more right wing than Netanyahu. He is a religious person, the first religious prime minister of Israel ever. So he obviously has some of the emuni, the belief background that you believe in, that you talk about and want to happen. Isn't this something good? And there are plenty of people in Israel who look at him being prime minister right now, at this government with all of its failures and weaknesses, but that is a shining light. Why did you join the Likud and not join Bennett and Yamina to try to right the ship and make a terrible situation better? And I guess you can go into on further the issues and your own thoughts about this government.
You can ask a woman that got just got raped, why don't she join and marry the guy who raped her? You know, after all, he loves her. He showed that he loves her. I'm sorry that I'm talking like that.
You have to, yeah. So please explain why you.
I know that's. I mean, I don't know where to even to start answering this question. You're talking about a person that used his yarmulke, okay?
Used his religious identity.
Used his religious appearance, at least, okay? Appearance, okay? To give the power to the worst of the worst Arabs. You know, Arabs that this Yemina party fought in the Supreme Court against their ability even to run to the Knesset. Now Bennett makes them ministers or head of important committees in the Knesset. And for what? Just to sit on that chair and have sirens when he drives ahead of him and behind him. Bennett begged me to join him for hours. But I remembered how he behaved when those boys were taken from their homes in the settlements and were tortured. When everybody knew that they have no connection to what happened in the Duma
just to get clarification for people, a number of years ago, there was an Arab child killed in his home, in his Arab village, in the village of Duma, and even though it was pretty well known and the news got out there that there were internal Arab disputes, family disputes in that village, and they did horrible things to each other, somehow they blamed it on some Jewish settler youth. And to what Moshe Feiglin is referring to right now, that they actually, the Secret Service actually tortured these teenagers, Jewish teenagers, trying to get them to admit to committing the murder of this child when it was known that it was totally far-fetched and they totally overstepped their boundaries and power. So continue.
So all these kids that were tortured, almost to death, tortured, okay, and their life were destroyed. How do you go back to your life after such a thing? Okay, when all the people were demonstrating outside, Bennett came out. The religious people from the Nitat Kippot, from all the settlements, were demonstrating against this. Bennett came out and gave all the legitimacy to continue doing that, because that were the place where the butter was spread on, media-wise. That serves its purpose. Then I understood who the guy is, him and Shaked. What else do you need more than that? That was already 5-6 years ago. What else do you need? And in any aspect you saw that you have an opportunist here that has no God in his heart, may have a yarmulke, but no God. Him and his party, the only member of Yemina that after the last election said, hey, we promised something to the people that will never go with Lapid, only with the Jewish majority, only with the Netanyahu. Okay? What other way there is besides Netanyahu? If you don't go with Lapid, who you can go with, okay? I'm talking about Shikli, the only guy, Knesset member, who did not join this scam was the non-yarmulke wearer in the party.
Amichai Shikli.
So what this religion means and worth by these people? They have no God. Zero. They are the worst. I rather have guys like Shikli who respect their promises and their basic integrity, who has God, their kind of God, the million Bennetts. What are you talking about, joining Bennett, just because he has a yarmulke? The Pope also has a yarmulke. Maybe I'll join the Pope. It's ridiculous. And what did he do? What did he do? For all these years, since 77, almost for tens of years, okay? This minority of Israeli Jews that don't want a Jewish state could not grip the last power point that they don't have it yet. They have a grip on the army, they have a grip on the media, they have a grip on the Supreme Court, all
universities,
everywhere. But the only place that could not take over back as they had before 77, okay, before Begin, was the political power, the government. Why? Because that's where the majority has the right to vote, where the people has the right to vote because of democracy. So how did everything happen right now? Here comes Bennett, give the people, the Jewish majority, the feeling that he is Yemina. What does Yemina mean? More right than Likud. So for sure he's not going to give those terrorists a grip of the government, right? Bennett we can trust. I knew you cannot trust him. But the people didn't know. He came before the election with a written promise. This he will not do. And did exactly that. Took 7 mandates that he got and gave as a present to the Israeli minority and to the Arabs to create a government with. And what did he get in return? A chair. That's all. That's all. Who runs the show? Bennett?
No.
I'm speaking to leftists. Because of my connection with doctors. Most of them are leftists. Okay? And I ask them, when we start talk politics, when you see Bennett, do you see Prime Minister? They all say no. He's not the Prime Minister. He's a doll. He's a puppet. Okay? Everybody understand that. Believe me, if Netanyahu would have been sitting there next to Biden, Biden would not be falling asleep. Okay? You see the body language. He's not. He wanted the chair. And for that chair, he sold everything. So you asking me why I did not join that? Really? How can you ask me such a question? But you know what? Okay, I understand it's abroad. Maybe it's there's a need to explain this.
Not everyone. First of all, not everyone understands the intricacies of Israeli politics as you or I do. But not only that, there are plenty of Israelis. I know plenty of Israelis that are right-wingers that they're happy that Bennett is prime minister. They see a picture of Naftali Bennett with his tefillin, his phylacteries, at a hotel room in Washington, preparing for his meeting with Biden, and they're like, "Yes, I am proud that he is my prime minister." And yes, this isn't the best situation, but this is the only way we were going to have a government without going to 5th election. So Bennett did what was necessary, the best of a bad situation. Right? There are all these different excuses. So for all those reasons, I want everyone to hear what you have to...
I will not say what's crossing my mind when you're talking about those Israelis and right-wingers. And let's go to the next question.
Okay. So the next question, I'm gonna take what you've said to the more political arena. Because some people have said, and this is definitely a claim of the Yamina Party and the proponents of the Yamina Party, saying, listen, Netanyahu was good for X, Y, and Z, but there are so many issues of Israeli society that he neglected. For instance, you just read the press right now. They're blaming Netanyahu for the fact that the wrong people were in the position running Israel's prisoner authority, and it's only because Netanyahu did not take care of issues and clean house properly during his 12 years as prime minister that 6 terrorists escaped from prison, because the Israel Prison Authority is a corrupt group, and there's so many other issues of Israeli society that Netanyahu didn't deal with. He was a great leader on the world stage, but Israeli society was not taken care of. He was a bad leader in Israeli society, and that was just one example. And here, Bennett and Yamina were now leading the country together with these other parties, left-wing parties, centrist parties, Muslim Brotherhood parties, in order to finally take care of all these issues that Netanyahu governments, when he was in power, did not deal with. So what is your answer to that claim?
When you're going into the forest and you say, hey, with this tree, Netanyahu did not deal right in the right way. With that tree, Bennett will deal better, and so on. You're losing the picture. You see the trees, you don't see the forest. And that's why it's so important that we started a discussion with the forest. What is the fight about? It's not about the 6 prisoners. It's not about economy. It's not about security. It's not about the vaccines, for sure. Bennett wants more vaccines than Netanyahu, more thing, you know. It's not about nothing. In every tactical aspect, you can say, hey, Netanyahu did the same. Netanyahu was like this. Netanyahu. Not about that. The big picture is, remember, is about if our children and generations to come are going to have a Jewish state. It's not a joke. It's not just words. The Supreme Court and all these power, for example, this government, Bennett government, just let another 5,000 Arabs come in from Gaza with their families. Almost a mandate. Okay?
I didn't even know.
Taking away the Magen David from the flag will be the last thing, not the first thing. That's stupid. Okay? So this is the war. You have to know where is the strategic front over here. I have so many complaints against Netanyahu. I have so many places where I did not agree with him. Okay, but I see the wide picture. I see the wide front. Okay, so I'm not getting into this discussion even. Where Bennett is better, where Netanyahu is better. Of course Netanyahu is better. But it's not interesting me. You have to see the war. Okay? That is the point.
Okay. So now I want to touch upon your Zehut party that you've just left and rejoining the Likud. You created something very unique with your Zehut party. Again, for those who are unfamiliar, the Hebrew word Zehut means identity, and as people who are listening to you can understand, the major direction of your political ideology for Israel is the strengthening of the state of Israel's Jewish identity for all Jews and for all Israelis, in order that we can have a safe and prosperous future for all of us as the Jewish state of Israel. That's the obviously simplifying it, but you were successful in tying in the Jewish identity with the cornerstone principle of freedom, since it was the Jewish people through God who created the concept of freedom for humanity. And you were able to bring together right-wingers and left-wingers, religious and secular, under your tent in that Zehut party. How do you foresee moving forward? Are all those people going to be following you? Or are the ones who are the left going to say, Moshe was a nice ride, but we're not joining you in this Likud direction. We're staying with our political left-wing anti-Jewish stance? Did you move any of them over in their strengthening of Jewish identity, even if they don't move over to Likud with you? What are your 2 cents on that?
Well, some of them join me into Likud. Not many of them. Many of them don't understand yet what I'm doing. But let me tell you something in principle. When you're creating your own party, your biggest challenge is to build a new base that did not exist before, or not exist before. I managed to get very close to it with the Zehut party, but it was very easy to get them afraid of me at the last days of the election, because I was very clear. I had the biggest platform and the most, detailed platform ever had in Israeli history, maybe. So it was very easy to attack here and there and get people afraid from all kind of ideas that were there. However, who are these Likudniks? What are they? They're not religious, not religious. They're mostly liberals, okay? And what connect them all is a very strong Jewish identity. So here is my base, waiting for me right there. I don't need to build a new base. It's right there. And that's the tool, and in days to come, to the leadership of Israel. If Bennett did something good without meaning it, is to prove that miracles do happen. Okay? If God wants me to be the prime minister one day, okay, that can happen. It can happen. And when I'm thinking of what is
Bennett's prime minister, anything can happen.
Right. Okay? I don't know what God planning for me personally, but if I understand this message that I'm talking about, message of Jewish identity to the state of Israel, connect Israel to its Jewish identity and to its basic goal and Jewish goal and message to the world, okay, can happen through the political world. The obvious direction is through these people, through this base, the Likud voters. Do not forget that every 4th Israeli voted Likud in the last election, double the next party came after Lapid, almost double than Lapid. And that includes the Arabs. So we're talking about only the Jewish in Israel. Probably one of every 3rd Jew voted Likud. Okay? So why I need to try to create a new base? It's right there. That's the frame. That's the ball game. To bring that message and work my way above. God willing.
So listen, Moshe, you've been very, very generous with your time. If you allow me just a final question, which I think a lot of people are also pondering themselves. Love to hear your insights. Right now, it seems like, again, the 2 right-wing parties on this political level, the 2 right-wing parties that are allowing the existence of this government, who in a sense can allow a right-wing government if they just joined the right-wing Jewish bloc, are the Yamina party, Naftali Bennett's party, and Gideon Sa'ar's New Hope party. Considering they've in a sense sold their soul to be able to establish this government, more and more people are questioning, wait a second, is there going to be anything that's going to have them say, wait a second, we made a mistake, we'll take a step back with their tail between their legs and go back to their natural camp of the right-wing Jewish camp? Or are we basically looking at a potential 4-year government where they already went forward with this direction, they're going to continue, and then let Yair Lapid become prime minister officially, even though right now he's unofficially prime minister? What's your take? Is this what we're looking forward to for 4 years? And how are we supposed to be able to come back to power with the national Jewish camp if these two parties, in a sense, have shown their colors, and it will be very hard for them to admit mistake and come back to the right-wing nationalist camp?
Well, first of all, according to all the surveys that are being taken today, Gideon Sa'ar is out of the picture. Okay, it's a one-time show. Now, not that surveys tells you what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying right now. Okay, they do tell you something. Okay, so Gideon Sa'ar is wiped out. He's not exist anymore. Bennett gets about, I think, around 6 or 5 mandates today, and he always gets, at the end of the day, much less. So there's a good chance that he by himself will not pass the threshold next time. But if you're asking me what's going to hold this, what's going to be with this government, in a funny way, the weakness of Bennett, as I explained before, is what holds the government. You see, when Netanyahu was the prime minister, everybody felt he's the strong prime minister. He'll never go away, so he can make his life miserable and demand all kind of every party can demand, because there's a strong guy that we can dance on his head. Okay. At the end, he collapsed, and if people would have known in the beginning that they probably would behave differently. In Bennett's government, it's exactly the opposite. All the leftist party and the Arab parties and whoever is there knows that he's so weak that if you push him too much, we're all going to collapse. So that holds their government, because all parts of it behaving more responsibly. On the other hand, there is the shadow of Netanyahu that everybody expects that he will go home, and he's not. So they're afraid from both sides. They see how weak this puppet that created this government is, and see on the other side Netanyahu that's ready to jump back in. So that in a strange way holds the government together, and it may take years. May take years, unfortunately. And in these years, they're going to cause a very strong harm. But there's a reason for everything. There's a reason for everything. And at the right time, that will collapse. What's the important, I believe that God, there's a reason why God is doing this. It's so we will learn from our mistakes and make sure that next time the Jewish majority gets back into power, we do not doing the same mistakes again. And that's why it is so important that I will be there. Excuse me for lack of modesty. It's very important that I'll be there to the side of Netanyahu. And in a time, somewhere in the future, as a candidate to be the leader. I look around me in the national camp, in the Jewish majority. I look around me in Likud, and I see very capable people. I see the ex-mayor of Jerusalem. I see that one day will try to run. I see a minister that created the whole new highways in Israel. Very, very serious and capable people I see around me in Likud. They all have the best abilities of management of Israel. They can be the CEO of Israel, okay? But I don't see a vision. I don't see a vision. And without a vision, there's no way to make a progress. Without a vision, there's no way to get off this tree of Oslo. It kills us up to a point where Israel is in a great danger today. Without a vision, no strategic front can be changed. That is what I bring to Likud, and hopefully to the leadership of Israel in the future. So, and it's much, I have to admit, it's much easier to make progress and to learn from your mistake when you're in your position. God knows what He is doing, and hopefully the Rebbe, as they say, the price of learning will not be too high.
Yep. And if I may add, the irony of ironies is your success, even though you didn't achieve all your goals, but your success with your vision and pathway to develop the awareness for the believing, strong, Jewish-minded Israelis to think one day we can have a strong, Jewish-minded prime minister for Israel. Again, the irony is what, in a sense, has allowed Bennett to be prime minister today, even though he's not fulfilling the vision as we discussed. Do you disagree with that?
Yes, I disagree. What happened was, or maybe I don't disagree. I'll tell you how I see it. I can see that I always lay down the fence and pave and Bennett, used the new conscience to jump forward.
Correct.
It's the first time I feel the opposite is happening. Let me see. Okay. I'll tell you a story. At the day of the first day of the new government, I was standing on a line in somewhere in a kind of a shop, and a guy that you can smell that he voted Bennett. You can see exactly, exactly how Bennett voters looks like. Okay, I didn't know who he is, but intelligent guy. He told me he works in a high-tech company, not a stupid guy. So he sees me and he recognizes me, and he says to me, "Hi, Feiglin, I have to tell you something. I'm so angry at Bennett. I'm so angry at him." I told him, "Why are you angry at him?" He said, "Because he lied to me. Even my mother," he says, "even my mother hesitated voting for him. And she said he's going to go with Lapid. Netanyahu said he's going to go with Lapid. And I convinced my mother to vote Bennett. And I said, no, he promised. This is not ever going to happen. And he lied to me and he lied to my mother," he said. "I'm so angry." So I told him, but you knew who Bennett is. After all, he's the guy that just 2 years ago left the Jewish home, Abayit Yehudi, and created his own party in the middle of election, left betrayed everybody, so he did it again. Why are you surprised? So the guy did not have an answer. And I told him, look, you wanted the Feiglin without Feiglin.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted, what you really wanted is the Feiglin vision with your, but not going out of your comfort zone, without the price tag it means, not moving, okay? Without moving from your comfortable couch. And you convinced yourself, here comes a successful Bennett who knows how to trick everybody and knows how to do politics, and he will give you the Feiglin without Feiglin. So the guy, and that's why, because you're not a stupid guy. You could see who the guy is. It's not Bennett that fooled you. You fooled yourself. And the guy looked at me and did like that. You know, that's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no, the only thing Bennett did is using the vision, the biggest vision of Zehut, take the whole essence out of it and use it as a mask in order to trick this whole big constituency of national Zionists. He needed to keep on. But it was one big lie, one big false. There's nothing that connects us. It's exactly the opposite. It is not the first time in history when you're coming with a very good thing. No, there'll be those who are trying to, the Chinese will try to create something of their own, but when you're trying to use it, you see that you fooled yourself. It doesn't work.
Plenty of Nobel Prize winners won based on the work done by others, yet they had the connections to be the ones to win the prizes, for example.
But he did not even win the prize. He did not even win the prize. I believe that Bennett right now is the most poor person in the world. I'll tell you something that you can take home, and no one ever told you in this show. Okay, I'm going to teach you now, Avi, and our listeners, how to catch a chimpanzee. Okay, do you know?
Okay.
It's true. It's true. How do you catch in Africa, the native Africans? How do you catch a chimpanzee? True story. Okay. How do they do it? They go to a dead tree, the lightning killed or something, and it's open in the middle. So here comes the guy with bananas, and he puts it into the tree, and he drills a little hole in the side, and sits and waits. Now come Mr. Chimpanzee, big chimpanzee. Okay, he smells the bananas, and he wants to grab take the bananas. So he put his hand into the hole, grab the bananas, wants to come pick it out. Now he can't. He needs to leave the bananas in order to be free again. He's connected to the tree now. Okay? Now the chimpanzee, in his mind, cannot make this logical one and one. He cannot leave the bananas. And he will stay there until he'll die. And after a day or two, comes the guy and simply take away the tired and hungry chimpanzee, take him to his village. Okay, tie him up somewhere and take him. Bennett is holding the bananas right now. He got it. He got the bananas. He's sitting on the prime minister's chair. He's just like the chimpanzee, million times worse. Because everybody understands that he's not in control. He's not the real prime minister. He cannot do anything. He's not making the decisions. The Arabs are making the decisions. The leftists are making the decisions. Lapid is making the decisions. He's making no decisions. He's not really the prime minister. He's holding the bananas.
Right.
That's the situation.
Wow.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
So,
Moshe, thank you so much for your time, for your insight. Shana Tova. It should be a good year, a year of health for you and your family.
Shana Tova, and if you decide to go hunting chimpanzees, let me know. We'll go together.
Moshe, thank you.
To you too, and to all our listeners. Shana Tova.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that fabulous insight and really deep insight from Moshe Feiglin. And just to tie it, for all of you listeners who are not in Israel, but other places around the world, especially America, Moshe touched upon a very important topic, point that I mention every once in a while as well, that even though things look like they're not going so well, and he was focused, so here we were talking about the Israeli politics of things are not looking so good for Israel, so we might be stuck with this situation, with this government that might do a lot of damage to Israel over the next few years. But in the end, it's about waking people up so that when the right government does come back into power, we will do the right thing and finally act properly to move forward correctly. And I've been saying this for a number of years. You could see this similar process taking place in America, the United States of America. Again, after the years of a very strong, robust America under President Trump, all of a sudden we have a President Biden and so many mistakes on so many levels on the world stage, not just for American society, but around the world. A case in point, just the Afghanistan disaster, which affects the whole world, not just Afghanistan or America. So too, just like in Israel and America, it's a wake-up process. Little by little, Americans are waking up to what's really going on, and hopefully enough people will wake up and rise up to bring about the proper government empowered to do and move forward properly for the benefit of a strong, secure, free America, and support the world as well, together with a free, strong Jewish state of Israel. So everyone, hold on to your hope, hold on to your faith in the one above. He's running the show. We just have to do our part to make our difference, and then in partnership with him to bring about a better future. So to each and every one of you who are Jewish, it should be a good, happy, and healthy year. If you're not Jewish, also make it a good year. Make a difference, and all together we'll bring about a better future. Signing off from the eternal and ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, this is Avi Abelo for the Pulse of Israel.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.